Ever feel like you need the key info from something huge, but just don't have hours to spare?
Well, that's what we do here on the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise. Today, we're honing in on Mr. Ashmufar's first live webinar of 2025, getting you the core takeaways.
Exactly. We've gone through it all. So we'll be touching on things like past business shifts, tech changes, trust.
And the future outlook, right, all boiled down.
That's the plan, giving you the significant points without you needing the full playback time.
Okay, let's jump in. So Mr. Mufar started by looking back a bit. The move from Dubai came up first. Sounds like more than just changing addresses. What did you make of that?
Well, mentioning Dubai right off the bat, that feels strategic. He didn't give tons of detail, but you kind of infer it might be about rethinking global positioning, maybe finding better markets or, operational efficiencies.
Mm.
It just shows how even big players need to stay flexible, change their home base sometimes. Yeah, makes sense. He also mentioned some hurdles elsewhere, Singapore, Bangladesh. Singapore seemed brief, but Bangladesh sounded tougher. Like investment was there, but success wasn't.
Right. And the Bangladesh situation, it raises some interesting questions about entering new markets.
Hmm.
Just investing money isn't enough. Could have been local market stuff they didn't expect, cultural things, logistics maybe.
Yeah.
It really highlights needing solid groundwork, localized plans. The fact he didn't dwell on Singapore might just mean things were smoother there
Yeah.
or less relevant to the point he was making.
Okay. And then Egypt came up. More complexity there, high costs, and he hinted at management problems causing failures.
Yes, the management complicity bit. That's pretty critical. It suggests your internal team, the leadership quality on the ground, is just as vital as the cash you put in.
Right.
So even a good plan can get messed up by, well, internal issues or maybe people not being aligned. Really points to needing strong oversight, accountability.
He also talked about needing to move on from some past staff situations, unproductive management, even some criminal behavior, as he put it. Sounds like some really difficult decisions.
Yeah, and it's a stark reminder about the human side of things, isn't it? Sometimes you have to make those tough personnel calls, protect the business, its future. Dealing with unpredictable people is one thing, but actual criminal stuff needs decisive action.
Yeah.
Even if it's unpleasant.
Definitely. Shows leadership responsibility for a, healthy, ethical environment.
Exactly.
Okay, so quite a look back at challenges. Let's pivot now to something affecting everyone. Technology. Its rapid pace. Mr. Mufar reflected on how it's changing our lives and not always in simple, positive ways. What stood out there?
What struck me was the balance. He talked opportunities, sure, but also the, let's say, potential downsides of tech moving so fast. Like that example of kids in China learning AI really young.
Right.
It's a powerful picture of how quickly education is shifting worldwide. Makes you think.
Absolutely. Makes you wonder about skills, competitiveness, how do others keep up? And he called for collective action, didn't he? To steer these changes positively for humanity. What might that look like?
That's a big question. Collective action here could mean a lot of things. Maybe governments setting ethical rules, businesses focusing on responsible tech, even just us, having informed talks about where this is all going.
So being proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Shaping it, not just letting it happen to us.
And he encouraged risk-taking, too. For positive reasons, not just observing, but acting. Why emphasize risk?
Well, I think emphasizing risk for good causes comes from knowing that real progress often means, stepping outside the box, challenging how things are usually done.
Yeah.
When things change fast, doing nothing can be risky too.
True.
So it suggests a belief that if we actively engage, we can guide innovation towards good outcomes.
Okay, shifting again. Trust. Something you absolutely need, right? He really stressed trust and integrity in business. How did you put it?
Yeah, he framed it as fundamental, essential in everything, and he stressed verification. Which makes sense, right? There's so much misinformation. You need to know who and what to trust. So building those trustworthy relationships, customers, partners, it's key. Verification helps back that up. Make sure info is solid.
He also admitted business has inherent uncertainties, but they're still committed to striving for security, building trust despite that. How do you do both? Admit uncertainty, but project confidence.
It's a tricky balance.
Yeah.
Being upfront about uncertainty shows you're realistic, transparent. But the commitment part, focusing on security and trust, that gives reassurance.
Okay.
It's like saying, look, we know things can be unpredictable, but we're doing everything we can to build something stable and trustworthy. It builds credibility.
And he linked this trust to accountability, like not letting down people who believe in you. Why is that personal angle important in business?
Because it makes it real. It's not just abstract corporate trust, it personalizes the obligation, reminds everyone their actions impact real people who've placed faith in them.
Right.
That sense of responsibility. It
Yeah.
can really drive ethical behavior, build loyalty.
Okay, let's talk communication style. He mentioned deciding to speak more from the heart, less scripted. What's the effect of that?
Well, going off script, being more spontaneous,
Mm-hmm.
it can definitely build a stronger connection, feel more authentic. It allows for, a more genuine feel, makes the speaker seem more relatable, maybe more sincere.
Builds trust that way too, perhaps.
Could do, yeah. Especially for building a sense of community.
And in that spirit of openness, he also mentioned critics, basically advising to ignore the negativity, suggesting it's not credible. What's the thinking there?
The rationale is usually about resource allocation, really.
Hmm.
Where do you put your energy? Engaging with criticism you think is baseless or, just malicious.
Yeah.
It can suck up time and energy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Energy you could be spending on constructive feedback or talking to people who are actually open to the conversation. It's a strategic choice.
Hmm.
Focus on the positive.
Got it. Looking forward now, AI and digital products were flagged as key future areas. No huge surprise there, given the trends. What does that signal for the business?
Well, focusing on AI and digital products, it clearly signals they're looking ahead, trying to harness these big transformative technologies. It likely means new innovations coming, new products, maybe services, maybe just making things run smoother internally.
Keeping up with the market.
Exactly. Shows that they're aware of how things are changing and want to stay competitive.
He also brought up a basic business need, backup plans for when things go wrong. Why is that so vital, but maybe sometimes gets pushed aside?
Well, backup plans are crucial for resilience, aren't they? Things will go wrong, challenges pop up. That's just business.
Mm.
Contingency planning lets you weather those storms without, sinking the ship. It shows foresight, managing risk proactively. But yeah, sometimes the day-to-day stuff, the immediate tasks, they can overshadow planning for what-ifs.
On a more upbeat note, he reported productive progress over the last 3 months. What message does that send out?
Well, reporting progress like that, it's a positive signal. Tell stakeholders things are moving, strategies are working. It can definitely boost morale, build confidence in the direction they're heading, creates momentum.
Of course, there are the ongoing legal matters. He talked about transparency, but also the limits on what can be said because of those legal issues. How should people hearing this understand that balancing act?
Yeah, that's a tough line to walk. Transparency versus legal constraints. I think listeners need to understand that while the intention might be to keep everyone informed, legal duties often mean you can't say everything.
Right.
It just requires some patience, really, and trusting that more info will come when it legally can.
And he did reassure folks that more would be shared when possible, while stressing respect for those legal lines. Sounds delicate.
It is delicate. Communicating during legal stuff always requires very careful steps. You want to be open, but you have to follow the legal rules.
Okay. Shifting gears slightly to the community side, the webinar apparently highlighted creating good experiences for people, acknowledging contributions. Why focus on community?
Emphasizing community is huge. It builds that sense of belonging,
Yeah.
shared purpose.
Yeah.
When you acknowledge what people contribute, focus on making things positive for them, it strengthens those bonds.
Makes people feel valued.
Exactly. And that usually leads to more loyalty, more engagement from the community itself.
And there was talk of mutual appreciation, community support being valued, and that feeling being returned. How does that dynamic work?
It's like a positive feedback loop, isn't it?
Mm.
Community feels appreciated, so they stick around, stay supportive.
Mm.
And when the leadership feels that backing, it's motivating, gives them strength. That mutual respect builds a stronger overall, ecosystem.
Yeah. Right. Lastly, some practical business points came up. Product choices, user experience. Why is that user focus so key?
Because ultimately that's what it's all about, right? Does the product or service actually work well for the person using it? Is it valuable? Good user experience means happy customers, loyalty, and that drives growth. Simple as that, really. Shows you're focused on the customer.
And a question came up about commission structures under a new model. What does that tell you?
Well, questions about commissions usually mean people directly involved in sales or partnerships are paying close attention. They want to know how changes might affect their bottom line, their incentives. It's a very practical, real-world concern. Needs clear answers.
It makes sense. And finally, even the webinar tools themselves were discussed, their effectiveness.
Yeah, talking about the communication tools, how well they worked.
Hmm.
It shows they're thinking about improvement. Always trying to make sure the message gets across effectively, that the experience is good for everyone involved. Continuous improvement.
Okay, so let's wrap this deep dive up. Mr. Mufar's first 2025 webinar. We heard reflections on getting through past operational issues.
Navigating
All
complexity.
right, and embracing tech changes, but responsibly with a human focus.
Yeah, the balance point again.
A really strong emphasis on trust, verification, open communication,
Foundational stuff.
and looking ahead despite some current legal constraints needing careful handling.
Exactly. We've pulled out those main threads for you,
Ooh.
hopefully giving a solid overview of what was covered, the key thinking behind it.
And that's what we aim for with the deep dive, getting you efficiently up to speed. So here's something to maybe mull over. In today's fast-moving world, how do businesses effectively strike that balance between being transparent and managing the very real constraints from legal issues or strategic needs?
It's definitely a constant challenge. No easy formula.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until the next one.